Hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast. My name's Mike Williams. I'm joined by Gareth Evans.
Hello, everybody.
And Mr. Liam McKelvey.
Hello.
No Jake. Jake is on holiday.
Man down.
Yeah, first family holiday ever, apparently, according to Jake. He does like to stretch the story, though, doesn't he, Jake?
As soon as his back's turned, the knives come out.
That was a little.
The knives come out.
That was a little nugget for him there. I'm sure he's listening. We have all been pretty busy this week. We haven't played a huge amount of games or anything like that. I've played about 2 hours of Star Wars Battlefront 2, and no one wants to hear about that, do they? So we wanted to talk about VR. We've been wanting to talk about VR for a long time on the channel, actually. And with Farpoint coming out this week, which is supposed to be the game changer shooter, which I don't know how much you guys have heard of it or anything, Farpoint. I haven't heard much chatter online or anything.
No, I don't know much about it. I think I saw a trailer at like E3 one year, and that's all I heard from the game.
That's right. I remember thinking that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's very few gameplay videos on YouTube.
That's it, yeah.
There's a couple of trailers. There's not very many people talking about it, and it's surprising, really, considering what it is. Now, let's just kind of outline it. It's the very first kind of AAA budget VR shooter game that is not a wave shooter, to my knowledge, at least. I don't know if I'm
you're exactly right. That's what their ambition seems to be. Anyway, so I'll just run through the details here. So Farpoint is a PlayStation VR exclusive, so it's not going to be on Vive or Oculus if you own those systems, and it's developed by guys called Impulse Gear, who describe themselves as an independent studio, and there's 40 of them, 40 of these developers who have got
indie development studio with 40
shit. No, there's not 40 of them. They have 40 years of experience, so there could be like 3 of them.
So it's 40 of them. They've all been in the industry for a year.
Yeah, right number, wrong fact.
Yeah.
So they're quite a small studio. They're supposed to be an independent, but this thing is pitched as AAA. That's what it looks like. That's what it's supposed to feel like. That's what it's evoking in the trailers and everything. You know, it's that AAA first-person sci-fi experience in VR, which, but in theory, should be awesome. But I'm just interested that not a lot of people have been talking about it on the internet.
Have you watched the trailer?
Yeah.
It looks quite good.
It does. Yeah,
like
it looks
the
cool.
premise, like the story.
Yeah,
like you're you're out in space and you get like marooned on this planet with aliens coming at you, a la Starship Troopers kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's
the hook, isn't it? It's like the big alien spider things coming at you. And so yeah, if you ever wanted to be a Starship Trooper, the game comes bundled with the gun adapter thing.
Yeah, that's it. So they've come up with this new controller for it as well, which is a spin on the Move controller, which has some added functionality. It's got motion and navigation sensors, and it's got a lot of buttons on it, is what I can look like. It looks pretty sleek, but when you look closely, there's a lot of stuff on it. And it just looks like, you know, the kind of the handle of a gun, basically, with that really lame PlayStation Move ball at the end of it, which I wish they'd get rid of that. It
does look
bad.
very tacky, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The with the controls in mind, then, because VR is notorious for giving people motion sickness.
Yeah.
Now there are different movement modes I've heard on this game. So it's the movement is always the tricky part for VR, because you know, even me, I've got quite a solid stomach. I can experience motion sickness in VR, and I have done, and it's quite disconcerting. Like, it puts me off. It's like, oh, I don't want to play this game again.
All I remember is when you show me a bunch of games on the Vive, and the climbing game. I can't remember what it was called.
Climby. It's called Climby.
Of course, it's called Climby. Yeah, it's a climbing game. It's I can't remember feeling that disoriented ever before, like even on a roller coaster or something, because your brain, there's like a disconnect between what's actually happening and what your brain thinks is happening.
You're like rock climbing that game, and there's an infinite drop below you.
Exactly. And it's a sheer face in front of you. And, stomach
it's brilliant. Yeah, and for me, I didn't find Climby too bad. Climby was good for me. But I have been motion sickness in the past, so if that's any indication of how well I can stomach it. But when it goes wrong, it feels like, I want to get out of this straight away. So that's the most important thing for a non-wave shooter, and that's why everyone's doing wave shooters up to now, and they're easier to,
you're static, aren't you? So there's nothing, things are coming at you, so you're standing still, just as you're standing still in real life, so it's fine. But that is something that they're going to have to be careful with, is the movement of this, because it needs to feel like you know, it needs to feel like you're quite natural movement and stuff. But although the sci-fi setting probably could let them get away with some kind of excuse, like if if there's some heavy environmental suit or something that's weighing you down or something like that.
Yeah.
Because before now it's just been teleport functions and stuff basically, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, that's kind of how you get around it. I mean, there's games like Arizona Sunrise or something, or it's called
Sunshine. Is
Arizona Sunshine, and then there's the Serious Sam VR, which again like wave shooters. So moving around, if you're gliding around, if you like a normal movement like you would have on a screen, if you push the controller forward and you're gliding around, that can become really. If you teleport like a couple of feet at a time or a few feet at a time, that's the best way to travel, and that's my way of movement of choice now, because I've tried first-person shooters on the Vive VR, and it can, especially if you like turning your head, you look in a different way, and you're traveling in a different direction. It's really difficult. Now, there's a mode here on this game where it depends on which direction your face is pointing as to which direction you travel. So if you're pointing to your left, you'll be traveling to your left, which is a lot better way to do it. Because if you're looking one way and traveling another, then that's just a recipe for disaster.
They're little ways of tinkering with the formula, which over time they'll get to a place where you can have VR and not be sick straight away, because they will add and innovate and come up with new solutions like that where it just kind of makes sense, and it will evolve over time. Hopefully with this, I'm really hopeful that they've got something up their sleeves for the movement, because that's one thing that I'm worried about with having not seen any actual gameplay, or I mean not seen how the game plays when someone's wearing the VR headset and stuff. How do they do it? That's something I'm really interested to find out, and I'm hoping they've got something new to show. That's one of my big hopes for the game. Yeah.
Well, I saw a tech demo at E3. I think it was from last year, and it just seemed like a regular kind of, the guys standing, twisting on the same spot and firing. There's no like room scale on the extent of HTC Vive. But I think the fact that you can stand up and move around to a certain extent with the PlayStation VR is again another kind of, I know not a lot of games do that. You're usually sitting down playing PSVR, or you're not moving around a lot. I mean, I like the idea that you can kind of lean to the side and crouch behind a boulder or something and then pop out and shoot. I like that idea, and if PSVR can give you that high, can make that experience believable, then that's points for PSVR for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I it's something about this game. I am excited about it, and nothing has been a system seller to me so far on PSVR, other than Resident Evil 7, which did look, from all the reviews and everything, the people saying, no, Resident Evil 7, the best way to play it is with VR, and that even came across when you were playing it without VR, because there was that amount of jump scares and stuff in it. You were thinking, this is probably cool in VR. But I'm not using VR. So other than Resident Evil 7, there hasn't really been anything that's made me think I need to buy a PlayStation VR. This I really want to like it, and I really want it to be a successful game, because I'm really excited by VR, and what I've played from the Vive here and stuff is really cool. I think it could be amazing. But this is going to be an important game in my view, because they have pitched it as like something that's different. This is like a first-person shooter, unlike any you've experienced before on a VR. So I'm hoping that it kind of that it does live up to that kind of thing. But it doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Yeah. So what I
mean, it's out tomorrow, isn't it? I mean, if you listen to this on Patreon, it was out yesterday, and if you listen to this on our YouTube feed, then it's last week now. It was out. And with the day before it releases, and there's hardly any information, not enough information to.
I had to go on the game retail website, so it was in the store game.co.uk to find out when the actual release date of it was. It's full price game, so it's £45, but I think that does come with the PlayStation VR AIM, which is that new controller.
I'm sure. I don't think it does. I think it's like £80.
It's about £80 for the full bundle.
Wow, okay.
So it's double the price if you want the attachment.
If you want the proper only way to actually play it. Well, okay.
Yeah, which is a bit excessive. But does this speak for the popularity of PSVR? The fact that there is no Wikipedia page, does that mean that like not a lot of people are interested?
This is what I was thinking, right? Because I'm thinking I haven't heard that much about it. There's been a couple of showings at E3 and stuff, and I have seen some promotional footage, some like cinematics, like pre-YouTube, pre-roll ads and stuff like that. But is it because they don't think this is going to be a system seller, and therefore they're not trying to push that out? And then the people who've got PlayStation VRs will want any new game that comes out, so they'll seek this kind of thing out and they'll buy it anyway. Or is it just because they're hoping that it'll come out and there's not enough of a PSVR audience at the moment, so they're just hoping it'll be like a word of mouth type thing that it'll just snowball afterwards? It's an interesting marketing strategy. You'd think someone at Sony would have been like, let's make a Wikipedia page. We should make one.
Yeah, but I think it's got the potential to be a game changer for VR. I mean, that might be overselling it a little bit, but I think
that's what they want it to be, isn't
with
it?
new technology like this, like everyone wants to remember that first game that they played, everyone wants something to remember the new technology. Because I remember, when I had my first gaming experiences, whether it was the first 3D game or first, it was like maybe the Sega Saturn or something, the first what was that game that they're rebooting recently with that full motion capture.
Night Trap.
That's it, Night Trap. I remember playing Night Trap because it was different for the time. You know what I mean? It wasn't awesome, but it was different. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's a good comparison to make, but I think going forward in future, you want to create like happy memories and good memories with VR, and I think this is a potential game that can. Why aren't they selling it so much? That's
the point. I mean, Liam, you've been talking about PlayStation VR quite a bit. Like, if you've thought about buying one and stuff like that, is this the kind of game that you are waiting for?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, if it's like the one to change the whole VR market, it's like actually sell it as something that you need in your game, into whatever, like
in your catalog or whatever.
Yeah. Like I think this would probably be the game to do it, because I've seen they're talking about it has a single player campaign, it's got a multiplayer co-op mode. It's not like a small project, but they're going to sell for like £15 on the PSN store,
despite the fact they're trying their best to point out that they are independent. Honestly,
it's like, I'm not sure what they're trying to go for it. Like, I don't know whether they're just being like, they've got a massive hit, they know it, and they're just being coy about it. Or they've like played it and gone, this is terrible, let's just brush it under the rug,
move on as soon as possible.
That's the
I'm
thing.
not sure about
there's no reviews either, is there? There's no big review discussion or anything on the internet. I haven't heard a lot of people playing it. I haven't seen anything much on YouTube about it. Whether that comes over the next week or so after the game comes out, hopefully it does. Hopefully it does get that kind of exposure, and we can understand what type of game it is. But I think with VR in general, it's the kind of thing which we have said before on the channel, that it just needs to be in people's hands and they have to experience it. Because I was totally skeptical until I had a spin on it with you here, Gaz. I didn't have any kind of, I had no intention of buying it or anything. But then having played it, I was completely sold on it. I thought it was really exciting.
I think what VR needs is a nice array of different of top class games that fill all the genres. Now, first person shooter, I mean, loads of games do first person shooter now. Let's talk about like the role playing games. How many role playing games are there VR? Very few. The one that we did play that was still in that early access,
Vanishing Realms,
and that was one of the best gaming experiences I have ever had.
It was cool. It was very cool.
Super awesome. Now imagine yourself in a Skyrim world, like going through like a castle or a cave or something, and you've got a bow and arrow and a sword on your hip, and there's like goblins and monsters coming at you, and you've got to kill them. You got to collect rubies, and you can upgrade your stuff, and like being fully immersed in this world. Where you can hear all the sounds around you in 3D, and like the landscapes change. If you go outside, you hear like the see the moonlight, and you hear the.
That's a big thing. So that's a small detail, but you're going from being inside a dungeon to outside is a big moment in it when you're playing that game, because it just suddenly the skybox around you is massive. It doesn't, you feel like you're in a big open area, which is a very weird. Like if you're just playing a game sitting, 3, 4, 5 feet away from your TV, okay, you can get these great moments like that. But when you're wearing a VR headset, it's just like nothing else. It's almost mind blowing.
It is like it's so immersive. It feels like you're in the world. So anything that, you know, if a little goblin pops up from behind a rock, it's like, oh shit, and your heart skips a beat, and then you're killing, you know, approaching this boss, and it's like, how the fuck do I kill this boss? I physically got to do this with my own body.
Yeah, I have to move my arm.
And and it's like it just activates another part of your brain that just, you know, you don't get from regular gaming, and that's what I want from VR gaming. I want it to give me new experiences like this, and I want like games like Vanishing Realms to do well, although it's still in early access.
Yeah.
I want more games like that. I want Skyrim in VR.
Yeah.
I want Fallout 4. I mean, that's coming, but if they pull that off, that could be another huge milestone for VR.
Definitely. They do need that kind of big experience, don't they? That full 40, 50, 60-hour RPG type stuff that you can explore. And
fully immersive. Games for gamers, not games for like the mass market.
Yeah, not tech demos, basically.
Yeah, this is what VR is like.
So what about platforms then? There's the fact that we've got an exclusive on our hands here with Farpoint. The fact that it's PSVR exclusive, is that gonna help VR? Do you guys reckon? What do you think, Liam? I mean, just having that same kind of setup as the consoles, where you've got some games that only come out on certain platforms, is that a good idea, or should they be a lot more open and free with how they publish stuff on VR?
I mean, the optimist in me would like to say they should be open and publish like on whatever platform they like, but I know the case with VR is
for the sake of the whole platform. I mean, for the sake of the success of VR, is that such a good idea?
Overall, no. But in these early days, I think exclusives are probably necessary because, like, if you see on the Vive, there's a lot of games. A lot of them are like tech demo-y or just like really short experiences. And I've noticed the majority of like really big games seem to be on Oculus, and that's because Oculus fund these like bigger games, and so they get it's helping it in the early days, but I think in the long run it'll be not a good thing. Exclusivity needs to go away for towards the tail end of VR.
Yeah. I totally agree. Exclusivity isn't a great thing for the people who want to uptake VR. It's like, I remember approaching the VR situation, you know, which VR do I get? Oculus, HTC Vive, PSVR. It's like, and then I've got to look at the games, and that's kind of what dictates my decision. I went with the HTC because of the resolution and because of the room scale, which you don't get on the other two.
That is a big
element
of it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Although it's heavier and bulkier, which, you know, it does detract from the experience, but it's all about the games. If there's a game on Oculus that I want to play, I can't now, and I feel like I've been excluded from this club. You know, if it's an awesome game and everyone's talking about it, like, I want to play this game. I don't want to pay another grand, another £800 or whatever to play one single effing game. Yeah. And it's bad. It's bad for the uptake of VR. But like Liam says, it is a good thing for getting games developed because people like Sony won't fund games that are going to be cross-platform.
Yeah, exactly.
They will fund games for their own platform, and that's the only way that these games will get funded. So without that exclusivity, there won't be half as many games. So it's like a double-edged sword, I guess.
So on that topic of multiple platforms, multiple different headsets, do you reckon we'll see one from Microsoft? Nintendo?
Microsoft have one coming out pretty soon. I think like early as August. I think.
What is it called?
I'm not sure what it's called. I know it's made by Acer though, and it's like an affordable one. It's like $300, $400.
So they're doing the same thing as Sony in that they're hoping to get casual gamers, to get more kind of laid back people to adopt the tech as well. Which is, you need to do that for it to be a success. So do you reckon it's going to be, you know, is it going to add to the market, or is it just going to multiply that kind of problem where you're trying to decide which headset to go for? Now you've got four.
I think I think this one Microsoft have got coming up, it's not even aimed at like gamers. Yeah, it's aimed at just like casual audience that want to watch movies.
TV,
well,
sports.
No, there's kind of corporations and stuff as well that want to do you know, in the mechanical industry. You know, if you want to build a 3D you know, model build up or something, you can animate it in 3D space. Which, you know, it's a huge avenue for the uptake of VR, and gaming is only like maybe the majority of what people are aiming to sell VR consoles for. But there is other
applications.
applications.
I think the event being at an event is a really cool idea. The fact that you can get a front row seat to some gig or something that's like the other side of the world, basically live as it's happening or something. Things like that are really cool. Being at sports events and stuff.
I tell you what, I do like to visit like historical like castles and old castles and grounds and stuff like that. And what I would love is a kind of lightweight VR. Them handheld audio devices that you can walk around and get a tour with.
Yeah.
What I would love is like a VR device to stick on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Augmented reality when you're walking through a castle and seeing how it was exactly. Because these days castles, all the walls aren't there, for instance. But imagine sticking a VR unit on that you can walk around with you. That's lightweight, and you can live out a story or something. You can see how people used to live, or you can see like the king in his on his throne room or something like that. That would be an awesome experience. And
you can almost do that with your phone already. So it's not like it does. It's not an unbelievable ambition, because you can walk around places with your with your phone held at arm's length or whatever and pointing it and stuff. And it does do that. It shows you that kind of stuff. Like there's one. There's no point going into local examples. That was stupid of me. But there are some locally that I've seen. Definitely. And we're in North Wales, so it's hardly like the cutting edge of tourism development and stuff like that. So I think that is a very we can't be far off that kind of thing. I think that's cool.
I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
There was like a museum in France where you could buy from the gift shop like a £20 cartridge for your Nintendo 3DS.
Right.
Put it in and you could like look at 3D paintings and pictures and everything.
Right.
So I think we're getting there.
Definitely. It's that period of transition, isn't it? Where we're almost there, and as the technology kind of advances and the more money and the more uptake, the more you can convince people to get it, use it, talk about it. Importantly on the internet, the closer we'll get to that kind of stuff, which is cool. Okay, you guys will know better than me then. With Nintendo, have they made any noises about VR, or do you think their traditional philosophy and stuff, they probably won't be interested in it for a while, even though they do push boundaries with gaming, motion controls with the Wii and all that kind of stuff. Have they made any noises about VR at all?
They did file a patent for like a headset, like the Samsung Galaxy with the Samsung Gear VR.
Yeah.
We just like slot your phone in the front of the headset.
Yeah.
They put a patent in for the Switch where you put it in like a headset, but I can't imagine that would be comfortable at all.
Yeah. I've got a big head. I don't. I feel like it would fill your peripheral vision.
I don't know if you take the Joy Cons off and you're just left with the
How big
screen.
is it? It's like
it's not that big. I mean, I can see that. I can see it working. I can't see it being great quality. The resolution would be quite low. But I guess everyone who gets the opportunity to use VR, even if it is just a Nintendo Switch in a headset. I think it's good. I think they should pursue it.
Nintendo being Nintendo, they would probably pursue it, to get kids into it as well, and they would have, the Nintendo catalog in VR would be cool. I would want to see that. But I think that's another point about VR as well. How do you get kids and kind of younger gamers and importantly their parents to be cool with the idea of just sticking a headset on a child and
letting them run around or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It has to be safe, doesn't it? Like you can think about something like a Mario Kart VR. That would be pretty cool. I'm thinking about. Well, actually, I will be playing Project. What racing was it? Is that called?
Project Cars.
Project Cars. That's the one. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'll be playing that this week in VR because I got that in my Humble Monthly. And I started playing the game outside of VR, and I was like, oh, it's VR compatible. Why don't I play VR? So that's my aim when I get home tonight is to a racing game in VR. That's another great application for it. And there's loads of people who are into the racing games, and you can imagine how lifelike it will seem. Like I don't know if I'll go to the extent of buying my own steering wheel and pedals for it, but I used to like racing games, so I'm pretty sure it's a decent experience.
That's the thing with anything that puts you in a seat, cockpit kind of simulators type stuff like a car, spaceship, aeroplane, anything like that. It's perfect for that so far, isn't it? But I think it's already great for that kind of thing, and you could easily get a full driving game experience, flying game experience, space sim, space trading type elite kind of experience. You can get elite and stuff on it, but there's so many controls in that you need a mouse and keyboard for it, don't you? So, but you can do that really well already. It's pushing it out of that, isn't it? And trying to get the genres that we are comfortable with and that we are familiar with on like a PC and normal gaming platforms. It's getting those genres in VR. And one of the oddest games that I've seen that I'm really excited about, which we have covered on the channel, is the Command and Conquer mod. Where you're you're a commander, so the battlefield is like a 3D map that looks kind of below you, so you're looking down on the battlefield, and you've got like the menu, the user interface is you hold it in your hand as like a tablet computer or something, so you're distributing commands. That's a really creative way of getting a strategy game, which is you think is completely incompatible with a VR, making it work in a VR environment, which is awesome. I mean, just with that in mind, is there any kind of genres that you guys would like to see? What would you like to see most kind of ported over to a VR kind of thing? What kind of game would you like to see?
I'm not sure.
Can I jump in then? I would say Total War, like a medieval Total War or something like that. Playing on the strategy thing, I would love to have a top-down view and just be able to turn my head and see, because that's one of the kind of limitations of having a single screen looking in a single direction. You can't assess things as quickly as you could in VR. And that would be awesome, like just pointing at your troops and telling them where to go, and then it would be such
voice recognition, maybe just barking orders. That would be cool. What do you reckon, Liam? There must be.
Yeah, I've got an answer now. I'd say like tactical shooters, stuff like SWAT, Rainbow Six. That could be really cool in VR. I know there are some like in development.
Yeah, they're pushing that way.
I've got some early access of the same thing, like an Arma 3 type of game.
That sort of thing. I think once that you figure out control issues and like room scale, I think once you get all that sorted, it could be one hell of an experience.
No, I think that's definitely true. There's certain genres as well, like just your old school RPG, your C RPG, like Pillars of Eternity and things like that. Just thinking what they did with that Command and Conquer mod, given that it's still really early days for VR, I think you can get eventually you can get any kind of game on VR probably, but I imagine the way that you implement that kind of game will be. You'll have to be very creative to come up with ways of doing it, but it would be cool because I was so impressed with that Command & Conquer mod, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, that makes total sense. You just need time and creative people to be working on these things, and you could probably eventually get anything working on a VR. And I think it's in a really exciting place. What's holding it back, I think, is convincing people that it's good, convincing people that they need to part with the cash, because it's the cheapest you can get is PlayStation VR. That is £350. A Vive
without any sort of controlling or camera or anything.
Yeah, and that's the bare bones.
Yeah, that's just the unit.
So it's a very expensive proposition, but the prices will come down over time, of course, and hopefully people will start picking them up and then be able to evaluate them for themselves. I am pretty convinced by it. I think it's got a lot of potential.
Yeah.
It's whether or not it's the future of gaming, I don't know. I think it's a future of gaming where you'll just have a choice. If you want to do some VR, you can do some VR, but you can still just easily sit behind your mouse and keyboard and play some of that.
I think going forward, what VR needs to do, the technology needs to advance and it needs to be more lightweight.
Yeah.
One of the problems with the HTC Vive is that it is quite cumbersome after a while. PSVR is lighter, and a lot of people might go for that because you can play for a longer session and not get as sweaty. So it does need to come down in weight. It needs to go wireless.
Yeah,
that's another thing. That people might be put off by that.
Probably might be something that people don't realise as well, that there's actually cables and stuff dangling from the headset, especially on the Vive when you stand up and moving around.
Yeah. The other thing, obviously, the price has to come down too, and I think I forgot what the other point was, but
I'm sure it was a good one.
Yeah, it probably wasn't actually.
It's. I think the thing that you said about the weight is something that we haven't mentioned, but I'll just quite quickly. I do want to say, after wearing the Vive, I wasn't wearing it that long. Maybe half an hour was the longest single stretch I had with it. I felt when I took my goggles off, you have that hazy kind of, virtual reality face afterwards. You kind of look, look like you just stepped out of a burning car or something like that. It
Pulled
just,
out the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. So there is something about that, and I don't know if that is because like the the kind of suction effect of the things going around your eyes, the front of your face, and the weight of it. So I don't know. Yeah, definitely being lighter and more ergonomic could I would definitely welcome that as well. All right, so virtual reality. That's thoroughly discussed, if you ask me. So let's move on to your comments. So every single week we answer our patrons' comments near the end of the podcast, and we always get a good bunch of questions. If you want us to answer your questions in the podcast, just reply to this post over on Patreon. So let's start with Callum Nye, who says, my question is, how do you feel about games like Injustice 2 announcing DLC before the game's even released?
It fucking sucks.
Well, Callum, I'll give you one guess. Yeah.
Let me fucking jump off here. Any game that releases additional content before it's even, gone to market is absolute shady. Yeah. Just shady business practice. Make the game full. Like, don't plan to make money off us before you've even got our like 50 quid or whatever it is, 45 quid.
It's kind of transitioned over time. Whereas at the beginning it was like DLC comes after the game has been made. In the olden days it would have been a long time afterwards. A lot of time it could be like 6 months later you'd get some DLC. Now when they're saying, oh, we've got some if you want the day one DLC you have to pre-order. And it's like, you've made this, but you're going to stop me having it because I haven't pre-ordered the game.
Mm-hmm. It's like a virus, isn't it? It's like it started off as expansions to games. You buy an expansion to a game, an additional part of the game, like and now like through just general acceptance of the public that a DLC doesn't seem too different to an expansion pass. It's completely different. Like early day one DLC is completely different to an expansion to a game. It's completely different, and people just accept it. Oh, what's wrong with day one DLC? And just like the general like ignorant public don't see the difference, and it annoys me when people justify it. Like, it's not right. Yeah. They're just like milking us. It's wrong.
I feel like you know exactly what you're doing there, Callum. Gas rant on request.
Baiting gas, yeah. Triggering me with it. Right. Bastard.
It's totally right. I'm thinking about it being Injustice 2. I mean, fighting games for some reason, Marvel vs. Capcom, they were the ones with the on-disc DLC, right, Liam? They were
Street Fighter versus Tekken, I think it was.
Was that one as well?
Yeah. I think they both did it,
Like, exactly. Fighting games, like, it's just a character a lot of the time. Okay, there's a move set and everything involved in that, alternate costumes and whatever. But when you've made that prior to the game coming out, and then you're going to put it on the disc and then stop people from having access to it before giving you extra money. That's about as bad as it gets in terms of day one DLC in my view. So just give us full complete games, and then afterwards, if you want to add stuff on top of it, that would be great.
I think the work that goes into the content has to be relevant to the price of the content. Yeah. So if you're making an expansion to a game like Blood and Wine, on The Witcher 3, for instance, like it's a whole another massive part of the game, and they charge a reasonable price for
very
that.
Reasonable,
and it makes sense because they've put more effort into that content, or as much effort as they get back from the money. I mean, if they're making shitty little skins or something, or just an extra character or something, and they're charging you maybe 20% of the price of the game. Yeah. It stinks like shit, and it's up to you guys to distinguish between what is actually a cash grab, and what is
what's
reasonable
good value, what's worth buying. I think the things like Destiny as well, who had just extortionate DLC, and it was so expensive because there was fuck all in it half the time. Like they had 3 big DLC items that came out over the course of like year 1 or whatever of Destiny, and they were all like, the first 2 were incredibly bare bones. The last one was decent, but the first one especially was like, what is this? You're charging like 15 quid for this, and there's barely it raises the level cap or something. It's absolutely atrocious. So anyway, let's move on. Daniel Jepson asks, what game have you put the most hours into? Liam, I want to know your answer to this.
For me, Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil 4?
Yeah.
I was just replaying it over and over again.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Jake about it like last week, because we were just talking about Resident Evil in general. Yeah. And I mentioned the fact that I've beaten Resident Evil 4 probably about 40 to 50 times.
Wow.
Like, just going like all out completionist on it, getting everything I could, unlocking every weapon. And for the longest time, it was one of the, it came out when I was like about 10 or so, I think.
Yeah.
And so, like, a 10-year-old can't afford games that often.
That's the thing, though.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying a while ago in another video. I can't remember what it was about, but it was like a lot of these skins and loot boxes and stuff like that. That's what it is, because there's kids who have got a bit of money, they haven't got enough to buy a whole game, and they just play that whole game for ages.
Over and over.
But that's where the microtransactions come in. That's how they really get their money out of them. Because the companies know that they can get a little bit of money every now and then from kids, just on top of what they've already bought. So that's interesting.
So it's either Resident Evil 4 or probably Modern Warfare 2 when I was a teenager.
I was going to say, Modern Warfare 2.
It's got to be one of those two.
Okay, Gas?
Yeah, mine's either Call of Duty 2, Modern Warfare, the original. Yeah, one of those two, I guess.
Yeah, multiplayer, innit? You just pour hours.
That's it. Just the multiplayer. For a single player game, I reckon, looking at my Steam profile, it was Fallout New Vegas. Over 100 hours clocked.
Well, my most played game on Steam is Skyrim. But I most of that time I was testing out mods that I'd installed. I only played it through like once or twice. But I was obsessed with downloading and installing mods on that game for a while. Skyrim, Total War, Shogun, Total War Shogun 2, actually it's probably Bad Company 2, because I played like 1,000 hours of that over the course of about 2 years on Xbox 360. So I wasn't even playing on PC, I was playing on console.
I played Shitty controller, man.
I played a lot,
but I was really good on it.
Console gamer.
Bad Company 2, yeah, that was one of my favourite.
Fantastic game.
It is, yeah, it probably is my favourite multiplayer game ever, I think. Even though I played awful lot of things like COD and Gears of War as well, I played a lot of, but yeah, Bad Company 2 is a special game, very good game. Okay, Daniel Morales says, "Hi guys, greetings from Mexico. I've been wondering for a while now, and I ask to you, do you think an FPS with elements of RPG could have a future or a strong fan base now? A game like Destiny with tanks, DPS, healers, farming, crafting, weapons, armor. Would you invest money/time on it?" Well, that's what I think. FPS RPG. That's what Destiny is. It's what it's trying to be. But it's just changed. You haven't got a tank, a DPS, healer. They're just called different things. They're called Titan, Wizard, or whatever the hell they are. I think that kind of mashing up of genres is interesting, and there's RPG elements in everything now these days, isn't there? Everything's got skill trees and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you even think of things like Fallout 4, which is supposed to be an RPG. It's gone more like first-person shooter with RPG elements. I mean, that's one of the main criticisms of it. But you're talking online here specifically?
I mean, if so, it's already a big thing. It's a big phenomenon, if you ask me. Mashing up FPS with RPG. Yeah. What's Ghost in the Shell? What's that? Ghost in the Shell Online.
That originally, when it started development, was meant to be like a FPS open world-ish RPG. Yeah. But it ended up being just like a Counter-Strike, Call of Duty lobby shooter.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's not like you level up and stuff like that. Yeah. And there's no like skill tree or no like different roles for characters to play. Okay. It's just like loadout based. Right. And then you match
really
match.
Addictive and makes you play every day for the last month and a
half. Not every day. I make sure I get my login reward, but I don't play every day.
Okay, so FPS RPG, I think we all agree that's very much a thing that's looking strong already as it is. So Tanya Kiriluk asks, "I was wondering, are there any game soundtracks that stuck with you long after playing?" Loads, absolutely loads. There's so many games with good soundtracks to them. It depends what it's trying to do as well. I mean, there's some games where you've actually got, like Mafia 3 and stuff, where there's actually just like licensed music, GTA and stuff like that. I don't know, what you guys, any favorite soundtracks?
Hotline Miami 1 and 2 for me. I mean, I got both those soundtracks on my phone in my music library, and I listen to them like probably once a week.
I'd say they're pretty popular picks, Hotline Miami.
Yeah, definitely.
Favorite soundtrack. What about you guys?
I think that it's unusual. You would think it was unusual for a guy like me who does love music and is a musician to be more into game soundtracks, but I am not. Right. It's like that's one of the things with games that like repetitive music. Yeah. That just that loops. It doesn't. It doesn't interest me. I usually turn the music off if it's going on, if it's
Right.
looping for too long. Like Persona 5, there's only so many hours I can listen to that, the same old music. So yeah, it is weird that I'm a musical lover, but when it comes to games, they're more of a distraction than anything to me.
Okay, that's interesting.
I guess I'm very unusual in that sense, I guess. But
no, I think a lot of people would agree that they just turn stuff down, or they like a lot of people would say they like the information in the sound. They want to hear what's going on, or they want to hear above anything else. Clicks or whatever in the distance, or they want to know what's going on and use their hearing. That way, there's some soundtracks in games that I really love. The most recent one that I've really, really enjoyed was Doom, from last year. That was great. Awesome. And also Mass Effect. I'm just a sucker for the actual score for that game. My favourite ever though is Fable, the original Fable, which was what's this, Danny Elfman, yeah. And it was just, oh my god, it just, whenever I hear the music, I want to play the game immediately. And whenever I'm talking about the game, I hear the music in my head. It's that kind of, this really stuck with me. It's so much personality in that soundtrack. I absolutely love it. So good question. All right, Milky Way Resident asks, what are your thoughts on the current state of QA, as in quality assurance? I'd like to know if you think the QA teams are responsible for the state of some of these AAA games are being released in. I don't think they are that responsible. I think QA is doing fine. What I'm willing to bet that it's QA saying, look at all these problems. The developers, the programmers and stuff are going, okay, that's going to take us about a month to fix all those problems. And then someone at the top's going, fuck that, release the game, we'll fix it afterwards. It's got to be something like that. I doubt that QA is slacking in any way in any of these games. I don't know what you guys think.
I agree with you totally, Mike. Like, I reckon QA departments, like, they find all these bugs, they'll send off their bug report, and then someone will go like, is it game breaking? And they go, no. And goes, fuck it then, just leave it, ship it anyway.
It's good enough to go out.
It's that good enough mentality.
A lot of the development cycles of these games they're just weighing up time, money, resources. Have we got enough time to fix these? No. Okay, we'll fix 30% of them before the games come out, and then we'll release a day one patch. We'll fix another 20. And it's that kind of thing, isn't it? So it's tough. I think it's just the size of games and the size of these projects these days. It's inevitable that a lot of them are going to come out buggy because there's money involved. There's really hard deadlines that they have to meet. They announce release dates way in advance a lot of the time. So that kind of adds pressure.
I mean, as a businessman, you've got to weigh up the cost benefit, and how much more money could you put into QA to ensure that your game goes from like an 80% to a 90% when releases? Like, what is that threshold? How much investment can you put? I would say that the majority of AAA developers these days do not have a big enough budget for QA, and or allowing the games to be. I don't know. It just feels like there's not enough bugs picked up. And if they spotted them, then they need to give them enough time to fix them.
Whenever I've seen interviews afterwards, the testers and stuff, they'll say, well, I reported stuff. I reported this bug and nothing got done about it. So it's I think it's a deep-rooted issue at the moment, and it's probably not going to go away anytime soon. Big buggy games. Yeah.
And how much does it cost to develop? You look at games like Ghost Recon Wildlands. Yeah. There was a few bugs in that game. The driving was pretty shit. Yeah. There was some bugs that I picked up in the demo that were pretty laughable, and they didn't get fixed. But yet that's performing really well in the charts. Like, loads of people picking it up. Exactly. It was 7 out of 10s across the board. Yeah. And it's doing really well.
Like, phenomenal. It's
like
good marketing, I think that is.
I don't know. It's just a game where, like GTA 5, it's got a huge sale on GTA 5, and people just pick it up, play it with their friends, and like you said, for the people who are the youngsters who haven't got a big budget, it's one of them games that can last them for ages.
Value for money game, innit? Yeah, exactly.
Regardless of how many bugs are there. So I guess
Okay, that's a good question, Mr. Resident. So next, Sam asks, I've got my GCSE exams coming up next week. Any recommendations on what games to play instead of revising? Yes, Sam, I can actually recommend that you just revise. Next up, Kyle Tucker asks, would you say...
That's it, is it, Mike?
Would you say Prey gives you that same drive to want to explore as System Shock 2 and Alien Isolation? So this is the last question. So Kyle Tucker, is Prey as you know, as gripping as System Shock 2 and Alien Isolation. It makes you want to explore. I would say, from what I've played, yeah, I do want to explore the space station and stuff. I think the atmosphere and the tone and stuff is nothing that's been criticised as far as I can tell, and it's nothing that's to be criticised either. I thought it was pretty cool. The setup of it was pretty cool. I don't know, guys, you played much more than I did. What did you think?
Yeah, I haven't played System Shock, Bioshock. You know, I haven't played those games.
Yeah.
So I will say, pray no. It's not as good as those other two games.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much for your questions, everyone. Remember, if you want to, these are a good bunch of questions as well. As always, they feel like they keep getting better, to be honest. Remember to leave your questions in response to this post over on Patreon. We'll get them answered for you next week.
Oh, by the way, before we go, sorry to interrupt. We are launching our Twitch channel now.
Yeah.
So for those of you who want to get over there, Twitch, the username on Twitch is Pretty Good Gaming YT, as in YouTube, because we couldn't get Pretty Good Gaming. So check us out on Twitch from now on.
Someone already claimed Pretty Good Gaming.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they're arseholes, Mike.
They saw it coming, didn't they?
Yeah, but then again, there were a couple of other Pretty Good Gamings on YouTube, but like a little bit different.
Right.
But you can have multiple with the same name on YouTube, but you can't have this. You know, we didn't have.
You've got to have unique on Twitch.
Yeah, but we're going to be streaming new games. Like for instance, this week, after we finish this podcast, we're going to sit down and play The Surge, which is released tomorrow. Yeah. So we'll be playing it a day before release, giving our early impressions, and we'll be doing more of that in future. And I'll be playing a lot of Battlegrounds as well. Especially with you guys who are patrons who join us on our Discord channel, because that's what we do.
Did you know, I spotted a few people in the comments who didn't pick up the fact that we were being sarcastic about never hearing about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
It was. I just want to put it on the record. It was sarcasm. Okay, it's that kind of thing that I find funny. I think
it was too dry, though, wasn't it, Mike? It was too dry.
It was perfect sarcasm, in other words, wasn't it? Yeah. So I know what PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is. That was the joke.
Yeah.
It's a big, successful game. That kind of thing's funny in Britain, by the way. If you're not from Britain, maybe that's what it is. I'll put it down to that. Okay, so yeah, we'll be over on Twitch as well, so that's exciting. So yeah, thank you very much for watching or listening to this week's podcast. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video. There should be another video on your screens right now if you want to watch that, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel and get your questions answered in this podcast, and get the podcast a week early, and play video games with us over on Discord. There's so much stuff going on. I know, it's great value, isn't it? We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.